NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck your attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst your legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for a special edition of Lunatic Fringe, because I'm hopping in the Wayback Time Machine for this one. Let's just get started. Who the fuck are you guys, and what do you do?
We're the Rans. I'm Ella Ran. That's Yonatan Ran.
Oh my God, these faces. It's been a while.
18 years.
Yeah. We haven't seen each other in 17 years.
Yep. Although I've kept up with all the stuff that you guys have been doing, and I know you're still pretty active, but what are you guys doing work-wise now?
Well, I'm actually running 2 small businesses right now. So I have an outdoor store that is really fueling my passion for connecting people with the outdoors and being active, having an active lifestyle, and all the gear that you need to make that achievable and accessible. And then I also own a yoga studio that is right across from DeLand that I bought.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you do bendy, twisty stuff that I should have been doing for the last 20-something years.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I found it too late in life after I'd already injured myself skydiving, but it's definitely something that keeps me sane and keeps me feeling whole and able to do all my activities and fun stuff. So
I'm sure you've thought the same thing then. If I had only started yoga back when I started skydiving, how much better off I'd be.
Truth.
I'm still refusing. I'm refusing to do yoga.
Are you really?
He did it for a few weeks, like 5-10 minutes a day. And then he was like, it's life-changing. I'm hopping out of bed with no pain. And I'm like, And then he just stopped and he refuses again.
But Yonatan, you look like somebody that does yoga.
It was good, but I don't.
He's pretty bendy. I can attest to that.
So,
We'll save that
Yonatan,
for after the podcast.
how do you keep yourself busy?
When I got tired of skydiving, I taught myself how to program, and been doing the same thing since. And last 3 years, got back into 2018. It dawned on me that I'm in the United States, and there are tunnels. So I started working in the tunnel, which brought me back into skydiving. Not full time, but very close to. So I'm doing tandems, FF, coaching, organizing some events, sequential events, and so on. Going to events. If there's a record, I'll go running and try and join it until they take me off.
Not
Sure.
try and join. They're inviting him to be on the base, and when he wants back in, he's in.
Of course. Well, I mean, it's got to be kind of tough to get completely out of skydiving when you're like right there with DeLand. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it is. But DeLand has the beautiful feature of there's a cloud in the sky and our pilot's tired. So let's shut down at 2 p.m.
Fair enough.
Frustrating.
Yeah, no, I could imagine. When I first got out to Skydive Dubai, it was still a pretty relaxed spot, and somebody'd spot a cloud 5 miles away and go, "Oh, nope, there's weather coming, we're done," and shut it down for the day. That was back in the day, though, long time ago. So, as per my usual, I always get my guests to jump back to their beginning. So, anything extreme, whether it be skydiving or something else, what got you guys started?
I was a jump master in the Israeli military. So they literally kicked me out of the plane, which at first I didn't like, and then I did. And at the same time, my sister had already started skydiving for different reasons. So at some point we were doing free fall progression at the drop zone in Israel, Sky Club at the time. And I was doing IAD, which is assisted IAD?
IAD, not IED.
Instructor assisted deployment. Yeah, it's different. And I remember one specific jump where I'm sitting in the plane with my sisters in the plane as well. And I had two options. One of them was I can jump out of the plane with the possibility of death, or I can stay in the plane with my sister and positive 100% death.
I guarantee.
I was like, I'm going to get out. It's my chances are better out there. And that was the start. I remember one specific jump where I think I was like at 3 seconds of free fall, and I got out and I did the 3 seconds and I pulled an under canopy and just looking down, and I saw the instructor that had just thrown us all out jump out and just take a 20-second free fall or something. And I just remember seeing him fall, and that was it. I was 100% in.
I want to
just hooked on. Now, was this this was in Israel, all of it?
This was in Israel. I was still in the military, and we did the free fall progression at the drop zone because it was cheaper than flying C-130s all the time.
Sure.
So yeah, this was in like 97, late 97. Got out of the military at 2001, and I went to the drop zone and I sat down. And after about 2 hours, the DZ, like the people there came up to me and were like, "The fuck are you doing, man?" And I looked at them and said, "Well, I'm not leaving till I get a job." And they're like, "All right, let's go. We got trash cans that need emptying." And that was it.
That was the start, huh?
Yep.
Well, so with Israel, military service is mandatory, correct?
Yes.
What is it, 2 years?
2 years for women, 3 years for men. And if you do something special that requires extra training, pilots, for example, then you have to sign up for longer.
Sure.
So I did 3 years from August 97 till 2001. And I did 256 military jumps in the military, which isn't normal. I was like, I'm in. I just want to get out of airplanes. So when everybody was like, I don't want to do the jump, I was like, I'll do it. And I just went for it. And this is round canopy military jumps, not ram air or anything. So it was
He's seen some pretty cool shit too. Didn't you push explosives out of a C-130 or something?
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
My favorite story was we did a cargo drop, which we had two 16-foot pallets in a C-130. Each one of them had fuel and live rockets, like Apache attack helicopter rockets and ammunition on them. For a team that was doing training on the ground. And the first pallet just shoots out, and parachutes open. We're like, cool, that was fun. And the second pallet shoots out and nothing opens. And we all run to the end of the ramp. We're like, what? And we just see it falling and hit the ground. And we're like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And my friend was on the ground waiting for this to come. And he said, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Because the first one opened, it was like, it's cool. But the second one just coming down and just.
Like, they're kids. They're like 18 years old doing this.
Of course. Well, I mean, I ended up in the military young as well, and I ended up just kind of going wherever they put me. But they let me fill out what they call a dream sheet, where you get to say where you'd like to go in a perfect world. And my one and only choice was Miramar, which was Top Gun. And I ended up stationed at Top Gun.
That's
scrubbing toilets and towing airplanes and all the shit work, but I still ended up there. So it was still the same thing. You're 18 years old and I'm like, I'm fucking, this is amazing. Really, really cool. So that's Ella, cool. How did you get started?
Well, I grew up in DeLand, so I'm one of the few people jumping here that's actually a native DeLandite. And so I was around skydivers. Like my brother did a tandem when I was still a teenager. And I knew that I was going to jump at some point. Like it was always an interest and something in the back of my mind. And you said to go back to like the first extreme stuff. Well, I don't really see surfing as extreme to me. It's just like one of the most awesome things. But I started surfing years before I started skydiving. So that was probably like the first thing where I was, in nature and feeling that kind of presence and connection with the moment. And so I knew that skydiving is a thing I'm going to love. And I just didn't have an opportunity to do it until I came back from the first time I went to college. And I was working here at Boston Coffee Shop in DeLand. And so all the skydivers would come in. So I started making friends with all the jumpers. And, they're like, you got to come jump. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm gonna. And then they're like, okay, I'll take you on a tandem. I'm like, okay. So I did my first jump. And then I knew from the very first time I was hooked. Like, I need to do this. This is going to be a part of my life. So I continued working at the coffee shop, but I also got a job at the restaurant and the bar on the drop zone.
Nice.
So I would go to coffee shop to work in the morning, leave, go make a jump in the afternoon, and then go to work at the bar and just like worked as much as I could to jump as much as I could. And in the first month, I think I did 50 jumps, my first month of skydiving.
Wow.
And it just continued kind of like that for quite a while.
That's really cool. It's funny that you say that surfing really isn't considered extreme. And I don't know about you guys, but it's so hard to fit that word into what we do anymore. I mean, skydiving was an extreme sport in the 90s. Like it still seemed extreme then. But we have so many friends now that do shit that makes what I do in skydiving look so vanilla. Yeah, it looks so pedestrian, right? Yeah. I mean, the stuff that's considered normal nowadays is so much over and above the stuff that I did when I was starting. So now I hate using the word extreme. Unfortunately, that's how it's an extreme sport.
Right. Well, it's all about perspective of like, what do you find risky? If I tell somebody I love to go surfing, they're like, oh, you surf in New Smyrna, but what about the sharks? It's shark bite capital of the world. And I'm like, I've literally surfed over a shark and seen a hammerhead and seen a black tip next to me while I'm riding the wave, and it was terrifying. But like I don't feel that it's extreme. It's just like I'm mitigating the risk that I can, but I'm also living my life to the best that I can, and I don't want to not live. So like skydiving I don't feel that it's extreme to me, but I think that's just perspective, and maybe we've been jaded by all of our other experiences.
Well, on the one hand, we can all agree that we've been in the sport for long enough to say it's not extreme, but how many people do we know that have not survived the sport?
Oh, without a doubt.
So it does increase your chances of not making it to old age.
Sure. I always kind of figured that maybe with skydiving, the extreme part came along not because of the safety record of skydiving, but because of the speed at which everything moves. Because scuba diving is not considered an extreme sport, but it's fucking so much more dangerous than skydiving. I mean, there's nothing up there that's going to try and bite me. I'm never going to run out of oxygen. I just might run out of air. I mean, there's so much more that can go wrong 30 or 40 feet down on a scuba dive than 10,000 feet up on a skydive. But everything moves dramatically faster and it scares people.
Yeah.
So
I think what makes it extreme and the reason why we have so many friends that exit this world is maybe because of our sense of ego and wanting to always like push the limits too. Like, oh, we're so excited by this amazing new thing and we get this high and this hit of adrenaline, and then we're like, what can I do next? And
Sure.
so like the longer we're in the sport, the more skilled we become at the things that we're doing. So then we start to push the limits. We're downsizing our canopies, or we're branching out into other types of flying, whether it's tunnel or paragliding or base jumping or speed flying. So I think that's the other element of it, that we just tend to be those type of people that seek adventure and thrill and fun. And so, you know, we just dabble in all these extreme sports.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I never minded the title extreme sport when a non-jumper is talking about what I do, because let's face it, it just kind of makes it sound cool. Until you get around a bunch of other jumpers and they're like, this dude's a fucking pussy, man.
What a tool.
We're gonna call him Princess for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
How did you get that name Princess, by the way?
Oh, the very short story was I got a guy by the name of Michael Hawks, who owned the Skydive Las Vegas drop zone, got mad at me and called me a fucking prima donna. And then a bunch of Brits that I worked with took me out for a goodbye party, and I did not drink at all. They got me really drunk and I threw up all over the place, and they were calling me prima donna, but one decided it was too long, so he shortened it to princess, and it fucking stuck.
It was, for me, working with you, jacked, muscle, big guy,
It just
Princess
doesn't make any
was
sense.
perfect. I loved it.
Yeah. That was, we'll definitely get to a few cross keys stories. There's no doubt about that. But before we get too far into it, when did you leave Israel and head to the States and start jumping in Mecca, so to speak?
So I think it was like after 2 years of working at in Israel, and I became, let's call it, the biggest fish in a very tiny drop of water for skydiving.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't know how to do anything. I can barely head down, and this is if I want to progress, this is not the place. And I had a friend that had spent a season packing at Cross Keys, and he was like, if you want to go anywhere, that's the place to go. So I had a bunch of money saved up, and I moved to Cross Keys and started there. As I just got there, I had 1,000 jumps, and I didn't even have a packing slot or anything, and I wedged my way into becoming a packer and set my butt down, and that's where I was from that point on.
Cross Keys was kind of, especially for that time, that's the drop zone where people just decided, job or not, I'm going there and I'm staying until they fucking put me to work, because that happened with a lot of people.
Yeah, I lived in a tent for many months in the forest in the back, if you remember that place.
Oh yeah.
And I did any and all jobs that was good. I was a painter, and I was trash, and I was whatever needs to be done, I'll do it so I can get the next jump ticket and jump some more.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the place to be. It was
what year would that have been?
That was, I think, 2003.
Okay, so you got there the year before I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, was it? Because I packed for, I guess I packed for one season, and then I got my USPA AFF rating and tandem rating, and
yeah, because you and I were in the jump rotation together starting in 04. Because I came with the I can't remember his name. Everybody called him Yoda. He only lasted a couple of weeks. They sent him out to Sussex and he got pissed, so he quit.
Or as we called it, sucks ass.
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but yeah. So I mean, I came out there, and by then you were already jumping. But what was that like? Because I mean, were you kind of like this fresh-faced kid straight from Israel that had no idea, or did you know what you were getting into?
I had no idea what I was getting into. Crew cut, straight.
Oh, fuck
crew
me.
cut, tall, lanky, and showing my dreads.
Yeah.
And it was. I remember the first time just seeing a twin otter and a skyvan and a porter and a caravan and a helicopter, and it blew my mind that one place always has all these things, and the landing area, and we have 120 ways happening next weekend, which is just fuck. fuck? 120 ways. Just laying there looking and hearing a formation for the first time in my life before the full was just blew my mind.
Sure.
And it was having a packing, like a loft, a rigging loft, and just everything is right there. It was a good place to be exposed to what skydiving is.
Sure.
Both in professionalism and it was like, most advanced at the time with Monkey Claw and whatever.
Oh yeah.
And the parties.
Monkey Claw.
Oh man.
He gave me a nickname that didn't stick, thankfully, but he called me a thunder cunt one day.
No, it wasn't me.
No, Monkey Claw.
Monkey Lip.
Monkey Lip. Oh, that's somebody else. Still.
Wait, now I need to hear the thunder cunt story.
It was just some issue with landing and traffic, and
it was a busy weekend day, and she was doing video,
and he got cut off by me on landing or something, and I was like, hey man, like, how did that happen, and how can we avoid this in the future and be safer? And he just started like railing on me, and then he called me a thunder cunt.
Then she leaves the video room.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm like, she can take care of herself. She's good. And I'm just editing a video and he says, what a fucking thunder cunt. I pause what I'm doing and I turn around and I'm relatively tall. So I walk up right close to him and he's here and I look down at him and he looks up and I go, you watch what you're saying about her. He goes, all right, I'm sorry.
Night.
I'm sorry. And he turns around to start editing and I'm like, all right, I turned back.
Perfect. Well, that's great though, right? You get your point across as long as the point is made, then that's it. So, Ella, you started jumping into DeLand, obviously still being in DeLand. You liked what you found there, but what was your progression in the sport? Because you were working in the bar, but how did you transition into working in it?
Yeah, well, the first couple of jobs I had, I right away pretty quickly did an apprenticeship with Pablito at UPT to get my rigger's ticket. And
I know him well.
So packing and rigging were my first jobs, and I actually also worked at Aerotech building rigs. So I did a lot of sewing stuff in the beginning. And then I went to Skydive New England, was my first real job at a drop zone, and I was working as a packer and a rigger there, and that's where we got together toward the end of that season. So I did packing, and then Yonatan and I met, and I left and followed him to Israel and back to Cross Keys, where we weaseled my way into a videography job. So I was doing video there, which was awesome. It was a fantastic season. Like, I think I did 17 jumps on one of my busiest days. It was just like video, edit, video, edit, like no time for even peeing or drinking or eating.
Yep.
And then after that season was when we came back down to Florida, moved to Israel for a handful of years, where I became the first female tandem instructor in Israel. So I opened up the sport for religious, Orthodox, Jewish, and Muslim women to be able to skydive, because until then they couldn't jump because, they can't sit on a man's lap and be connected to them. So
sure.
So that was cool. So I did video and tandems there. And that was about the time that he was getting a little bit jaded and sick of jumping. And
I wasn't getting sick of jumping. I was getting mad at skydiving.
Hey.
It was being in a situation where the sport was progressing and we were stuck in Israel, where basically the only thing we could do was tandems.
Sure.
And I can see people flying in the tunnel and I can't. And I can see people doing these formations and doing stuff that I really want to do and I can't because I'm stuck skydiving wise where we were.
Sure.
And I got so frustrated and so annoyed that I was like, I want nothing to do with skydiving. I hate it. It's bullshit.
The environment was not very fun jumper friendly, and they weren't really trying to push the sport. It was just like
tandems, just tandems.
It's,
that's what I'm like that.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing that happened to skydiving, and it's a horrible thing that happened to skydiving all in one, because I don't know any working skydiver nowadays that would be where we are without tandems. But I also know, I don't know how many drop zones that have been devastated by tandems, because that's the only way to make money. And I would jokingly say, as a jump pilot all those years, that the worst thing ever to happen to skydiving was skydivers, because as a jump pilot, tandems are easy. Up and down
Yeah.
all day long. You turn on the green. Everybody fucking gets out. There's no calls for go-arounds. Nobody's trying to correct shit. They just
We need a
leave.
cut.
Yeah, all of that stuff. It's very easy when it's a tandem machine. But then I would have the weekend off and want to go jump. And now I'm a skydiver again that hates tandems because you're waiting an hour and a half to get on a load, and it's all that stuff. So I definitely feel you there. And it's sad when it's not the sport that you hate; it's just the situation in the sport that you're stuck
Yeah.
in.
And then we moved back to the US in 2013, and I was still stuck in the
2012.
end of 2012. We came for New Year's
Our
2013.
timelines don't really lie. Okay, I believe you.
You guys
So
have been
we-
together a little while, haven't you?
Almost 20 years, 17 years. We've been
Yeah.
married 16 years this year.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So
How crazy is that?
And we're more in love today than we've ever been. Like, oh my
Oh.
God, you should have seen us this morning when we woke up. It was just so adorable.
Was very horny.
Fair enough.
But
Hey.
also very much in love.
Yes.
We've had a fantastic relationship that's only getting better.
Which is how it's supposed to be. I mean, that's kind of the fairy tale. It doesn't happen very often. So I'm glad that you guys appreciate and enjoy what you've got, because it's a rarity. Even in the sport, it's a rarity.
For sure.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So,
think
Yonatan,
especially
back
in the
to your arrival at Cross Keys as this fresh-faced, really tall, crew-cut Israeli who just stumbled into the craziest fucking drug-fueled party scene on the face of the planet.
And he's straight edge
Yeah, at
too.
that
I know.
Not drinking, not doing any drugs, but still managing to enjoy the party and have fun with everybody.
I mean, you had to have scratched your head because as one of those that did partake a few times, we did some really stupid shit.
It was fantastic to watch from the side. I really, really enjoyed. There was that one time, I'll never forget this, where
With the ladder.
Project Horizon, if you remember what this was an invitational event that would move from drop zone to drop zone, free flying, like trying to push the limits of free flying.
Mhm.
I was nowhere near the level to be invited to this, but they were at Cross Keys and they convinced Selwyn. It was night, it was storming outside, like there's a thunderstorm, lightning strikes repeatedly happening outside, and they convinced him, I think it was for $50, to strip down naked. They wrapped him in tinfoil, gave him an aluminum ladder, and told him, go run around the pond.
Yep.
And he stripped down, he was naked, they wrapped him around in tinfoil, and he ran around, and everybody's running around him with cameras. And it was just like standing there watching this going, this place has got to be the greatest place in the world.
Oh yeah.
Where else can you do this?
I have a beautiful picture of him wrapped in tinfoil holding the ladder, and you can clearly see his knob is wrapped in tinfoil as well.
Individually, like these.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, the twig and berries are separately wrapped. It's fucking fantastic.
Amazing.
Oh yeah. But it was,
I love that dude.
I moved to Cross Keys from, of all places, Las Vegas, and I was like, I've stumbled into the craziest place on earth at Cross Keys, because I think I had been there 2 months when the peanut butter experience happened.
I know about
Which
the
one?
peanut butter.
Which peanut butter experience?
The
Is this
Kusky,
the one on the back deck?
the Kusky, yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God. We've talked about this before. I had young Mark Norman on. I've had Will on the podcast as well. And so the peanut butter came up. So I won't tell the whole story again, but you know it. Passed out on the back deck, ends up naked with peanut butter and the drop zone dog. And they can sort out the rest. By the way, I have a guarantee for a future interview date with the one and only Mr. Selwyn Facey.
Yes.
I'll never forget the one time he was, I assume, on acid.
Never know.
He was. I walk into the bathroom at night. He's just standing there staring at the mirror. He's got a tie-dye shirt on, and then he just starts pulling colors off his shirt and throwing it at himself in the mirror. And I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He was like, "He's throwing paint at me," and he's pointing at himself in the mirror. And he just had a paint, just pulling and just losing his mind.
Yep.
Such a beautiful soul, but also very highly entertaining person.
Oh my God. Oh my
most.
God, yes. Well, I'll never forget the first time that I met him and Will. I'd only been at the drop zone for like a day or two, and I happened to have two rigs because I was told if you're going to be shooting video, you got to be able to do back to back. So I had two rigs when I went out there, and they knew that I was there to work, but neither of them had introduced themselves to me, and they're running off the landing area and they're training because they want to be competing in free fly. And they asked me, have you got any rigs? And I'm like, yeah, there's a blue one right next to a black Micron, and cool, thanks. And grabbed them without even knowing what was in them. Didn't matter. Tossed them on,
right.
went out and jumped my gear. And I'm like, oh, I guess I work with those guys. It was so crazy. And Edo's, I mean, he loved the fact that place was as insane as it was.
Yeah, I remember one time I was driving to the drop zone. I stopped at a gas station, and Kusky walks up to me. He's got his canopy open over his shoulder. He's naked except for a tutu.
Mm-hmm.
Just a tutu in his canopy. And I'm like, I stop and I look at him like, hey, Kusky, what's going on? And apparently Edo's told him, put that on, the tutu, take a rig, get in the helicopter. So he did. And he flew him up to 3,500 feet, flew him off the drop zone, and told him to get the fuck out. So Kusky did. And then he's landed in the middle of nowhere, naked except for a tutu.
Just for his enjoyment.
Yeah. Because that was like, that was awesome. I enjoyed that. And he's like, can I have a ride back to the drop zone? And I was like,
No.
You didn't pick him up.
drove off, left him there walking with his canopy and his tutu, just butt naked.
Oh, Edo's was the one that started most of the shit. He would just kind of get the ball rolling and then step back to a safe distance and watch it happen. Like that was his thing, was he loved to get it started and then just see how far it would get taken, which was usually always too damn far.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the crew we had, because it was Mark Norman, it was Rob Stanley, it was Will and Selwyn, it was, I mean, Kusky, all the Monkey Claw guys. You and I were out there. Who else? Jacko was there, Kim Worthington. I mean, holy shit, what a crew.
We had Jono.
Jono flying. Yep.
And we had Crow, Tristan.
Do you remember what they ended up calling him?
No.
I think they started calling him, what did they started calling him? The Merchant of Death or something? Because he had flown like, I want to say 4 or 5 different fatalities out of his plane, just in this horrible string of luck. Because he was flying the Skyvan when the lady fell out of her harness.
Oh my God.
Was that?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't flying that in Atlanta.
Oh wait, no. He was flying the paraplegic guy that fell out of his harness.
Yeah, okay.
That's the one that silly me.
That was the other person.
I remember that one because Worthington was standing there and I was standing next to her watching the guy get geared up. And she looked at him and she looked at what they're doing. She looks at me and goes, that guy's going to die, and walks away. He died.
You know what's really funny about that story? And I've never heard that before. Do you want to know how Kim Worthington introduced Craig Kusky to me? Hey, this is Craig. He's going to be the next person to die at Cross Keys.
Oh, she didn't.
She did, and he was.
Oh my God, Kim. Chicken.
Kim is death incarnate. It's her. Oh, Worthington.
Well, good thing she's on the other side of the planet now. She's
right?
having a wonderful life in Australia.
I've got to ask you something as a jump pilot.
Yeah.
Ex-jump pilot. Do you remember when we'd sit in the Twin Otter and whoever was flying, and we'd reach over and fuck with stuff?
Oh,
We
yeah.
were just talking about this yesterday.
How would you as a jump pilot feel if somebody did that to you now? You're just flying around and all of a sudden the plane starts pitching down. You're like, what the fuck?
Well, I
You
have
fuck with flaps.
I have a rather unique perspective on that exact question. John Eddowes is actually the one that taught me how to fuck with the elevator trim in a Twin Otter. And he taught me, and then two loads later, I was doing it. And that's when the pilot lost his shit and kicked the rudder super hard and almost knocked Sarah out of the plane. We landed. Eddowes calls me on a shutdown, calls me over. Did you fuck with the trim? I'm like, yes, I did. He calls the pilot over and smiles and goes, you're fucking fired. Fired the pilot and patted me on the back.
You kidding me?
No.
His reaction was pretty violent.
Well, yeah, his logic was perfect. Edo's was like, if that's how you react from somebody fucking with your trim, what are you going to do when you have an actual emergency?
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, because I actually got one of my brethren back in the day fired, I always had the mirror to watch the jumpers specifically set so that every time one of those fucking yahoos of mine would get behind me that I knew would fuck with me, I could see the trim. So I avoided it, but I would like to think, because I flew I have a little right around 11,000 hours in Twin Otters. And I'd like to think that I'd just kind of look down and laugh. But it depends.
On a caravan, I remember we'd unzip the roof cover so that we could pull a cable.
Oh my God.
And fuck with the pilot.
Fucking jumpers.
Then zip back up, and I didn't do anything.
Yep. The mechanic that was at Cross Keys named Bagel. You remember him?
Yeah.
So we were flying one of the Cessnas to go inspect that Twin Otter that a pilot had taxied into a hangar. We were inspecting it for Edo's, and I was building up hours, and he was doing that shit to me. But I had like 90 hours at the time, so I'm like, oh my God, something's wrong. Low enough that it was
that Twin Otter sitting there without wings. I would tell people stories about that.
Yep.
Like I remember standing there with a tandem student waiting for the plane. The plane starts up, and he taxis next to us and taxis away and takes off. And he's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "You see that other Twin Otter there with the wings on the side?" And he's like, "Yep." He's like, "Last time we got on that one and we taxied and tried to take off and the wings flew off. So now we test it before we get on." And tandem students are like, "Checks out. Yep, makes sense."
God, the stuff that we used to do with those tandems, because Cross Keys was an insanely busy tandem factory that also happened to have a lot of fun jumpers. But I mean, you remember on Fridays and Saturdays, you'd do 25 tandems a day.
Do you remember the Red Bull world record?
Yeah. Do I?
He did 26 in a day.
Yeah. Yep. I have a record for throwing up 3 times in a day.
Ew. Why?
All I drank was fucking Red Bull.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's all we had, just Red Bull and tandems. And then I stopped at 26 because John Edwards was like, I needed to do demos off the helicopter into the pond. I was like, I'm in. Let's go.
Yep. I did 29. Jackson, I think, had the record that day, and he did 31.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Okay.
Well, Jekyll and I screwed ourselves because at the beginning of the day, we learned that if you land really quick, the way they were gathering up all the customers, they'd put them just kind of in a bullpen, and you would just grab the next geared up customer and get on the plane. So we learned really quick, if you run really fast, you get to grab all the cute girls. So we're running past everybody, grab a cute girl, get on the airplane. But about jump number 15 or so on, all the cute girls had jumped. And it was just a bunch of middle-aged, chubby, pissed off guys that we'd been running past all day. And we got, really angry, sweaty guys I think it was in August in Cross Keys.
It was a good day, though.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day. And the party that night was kind of out of control.
It was, man. I remember they had a fire truck that just poured out beer.
Yeah.
Out of the fire hose?
Yeah, they filled it, fire truck, a real fire truck. They filled it with beer, and
that's like a beer bong on crack.
It was,
yeah. Well, they hired a bunch of cocktail waitresses and dressed them all up as like old World War I flyers with the hats and the goggles and everything to be the waitresses. And they had this huge spread of food for everybody to eat. But most of us were too sick from drinking Red Bull all day and couldn't eat. And the other half that weren't too sick had already started dropping Molly and were already too far gone. So it was craziness. So how about you, Ella? Any wild and crazy days? Was it all DeLand, or was it by the time you hit Cross Keys it had mellowed out?
I feel kind of gypped hearing all the stories about Cross Keys because the season that I was working there, it wasn't as insane. However, I got my fill at Skydive New England.
Okay.
So you guys talk about Cross Keys being crazy, but talk about drug-fueled partying. I mean, we had 1 month and a half of the season where it just rained every single day. I remember we didn't see a blue sky, not even a hole in the sky, for maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so, what do you do when you can't jump and you're in the middle of Lebanon, Maine, and surrounded by skydivers with nothing else to do? So we didn't get hurt, but we certainly partied. But I wasn't I wasn't straight edge like Yano, but I wasn't super heavy into drugs ever.
Sure.
I think as I'm getting older, I'm coming around to it a little bit more. I like the psychedelics. What can I say?
The older we get, the more we're like,
when I leave here, that's what I'm going to get.
Right.
Some mushrooms. But
well, it's funny. My wife has got another year to go to finish up her psychology stuff, and she wants to go into therapy working with psilocybin.
Yes.
Which is fantastic, especially with what's going on in the States. And we're probably only a year or two away from them legalizing it for therapy, which is fucking incredible. And here I am going, psilocybin is fun.
Ooh, fun. I'm going to go play with bubbles in the backyard.
Yep.
I went from straight edge to, I haven't tried that yet.
See, that's kind of funny because if at the time when you and I met, you already had the dreads going, and of course in Cross Keys at that time, if you were jumping, half of the time you're walking around with no shirt on and your jumpsuit tied around your waist if it's a weekday and all that. And if you had lined everybody up and asked them who in this crowd does drugs, you probably would have been the first person I pointed at. I'm like, that guy's a fucking stoner. There's no way he's not. Yeah, and then we became friends, and I'm like, dude, you don't even drink? Like, holy shit. All right, cool. Here we go.
So, Yano and I both had dreads. And when I first came to Cross Keys, I remember sitting at that little bar outside, and somebody walked up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder and was like, Yano. And I turned around and I'm like, what? Like, they mistook me for him. And that wasn't even the first time that people thought we were related, like familial relations. In Israel, people went up to his dad and were like, do you have another daughter I don't know about? Didn't even know the connection between Yano and I dating, and thought that I was his sister. So we kind of played that off too when we were in Cross Keys. We fucked with the tandem passengers sometimes.
No, that was Cruzy. He initiated that.
Cruzy did initiate it, but he was like, those two, they're from Alabama or Kentucky. And then right before, and we heard him talking about this, so we really went in for the smooch right before exit.
They're siblings. They're from Alabama. That's what he kind of said.
That's how they do.
And then before exit, be like,
big old kiss.
French, and then leave.
Which actually you could actually pull off, because Yonatan, you have like no accent. You have an American accent. So considering you grew up and went through the Israeli military and everything, to have no accent whatsoever is. Did you work at keeping the accent at bay, or did you just end up?
Well, he went to American school, international school.
My English started from an American school, so my parents were diplomats. So kindergarten and first, and I'd say most of second grade, I went to an American school surrounded by Americans.
Okay.
So my English that I was exposed to was American English. And then when I came to the US, just being immersed in it just came back.
And now I can fool you in the other direction. So we lived in Israel for a few years. So when I speak Hebrew, people think that I'm Israeli.
Nice.
And when he speaks English, people think he's American.
Now, did you learn Hebrew just because you were with Yonatan, or was this something you learned before?
It was something that I learned only after we went to Israel, but I always had an interest in languages. Like, really, the multicultural aspect of skydiving is one of the reasons I got into it, because I just knew I wanted to travel. And
our spawn.
Yeah, this is our human.
Nice. Hello.
Hi to Princess.
I would curtsy if I was standing up. It's cool that you did the language thing. I would love to, and I wish that I had more of an aptitude for language, but not only do I not have an incredible aptitude for language, but I also married a Finnish woman, and there's no fucking way in hell I'm learning to speak Finnish. It's an insane language. It's like a record playing backwards. It just doesn't sound right. It's all vowels. It's not right. So
we just watched the movie Sisu.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, he's finished. Oh, it's so good. You got to watch it.
I'll have to give it a shot. So, Yonatan, you got burned out on jumping. You're like, F this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and be a coder.
Yeah.
What was this something that you had a passion for, or it's just I need to find a job outside of skydiving? I'm gonna give this a shot.
It started with you remember CK1?
Oh yeah.
So we needed a website, so I taught myself how to do that. And it progressed from me being happy with the website for a week. I'd be like, it's good. And then after a week, I'd be like, it's crap. So I'd learn some more and make it better and better and better and better and learn more. And then when we moved to Israel, I need to do something. So I started marketing myself as that. And then I learned more and more and more. And that was it. I
Nice.
taught myself how to code.
Nice. And then Ella,
He's
you had
pretty
mentioned
smart.
a while back that you had gone to college. What were you studying? What were you going to be when you grew up?
I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I studied government diplomacy and strategy. So I've always had an interest in, I know, that's a mouthful.
Wow.
I'm volunteering my time in capacities, that are related. Like I sit on a couple of local government boards and stuff, but it was basically international relations, Middle East conflict, history, and both my parents were teachers. My dad was a history teacher. My mom was a math teacher, and they're both bibliophiles and bookstore owners.
Sure.
So
This must be a very interesting time for you.
it is. I mean, we've had no shortage of interesting times, even since we were living in Israel. I mean, when I was studying was when the Arab Spring was happening.
Wow.
And I was doing my degree during that time. So it was fascinating.
Yonatan, I actually thought of you recently when I was still in Dubai, because I was in Dubai for 10 years. And of course, for the longest time, Israel and the UAE were not getting along so great, to the point where I had gone visiting a bunch of different places in the Middle East, but would have had to use a separate slip of paper if I wanted to go to Israel and then come back to the UAE. But I was so proud to see that change before I left, because now, of course, the UAE has good relations with Israel for the first time in I don't even know when. And I got to meet a bunch of fucking badass Israeli skydivers that had come from Israel to jump in Dubai. And I was so stoked. And all I was thinking was, where's Yonatan? I want him to come here. Come on, come play.
I mean, I think the whole skydiving world, at least in our clique of friends and our community, we're really happy for him to come back. And now he's doing some really cool shit again, like doing sequential events. And like one of the absolute most fun skydive days I've had in the last 10 years are when he did a sequential, like we were doing 20 ways in Sebastian a few months ago with all of our friends. So I'm happy that he's back into it, because, he's got so much more experience than me, and he's so talented, and he's coming up with some good ideas.
Sure. Yonatan, how's it feel? How's it feel to step away from it and come back and know you still got the chops to keep up with the kids?
It feels pretty good. It's nice to see that ideas that I've had that we couldn't do because they were just fucking too crazy,
right,
are like
being done.
We can do this now. Like the event she was talking about, I walked up to the group and I was like, all right, I need 6 people for this exit. We're gonna do a 6-way round exit. 3 of you guys are gonna be out facing, which would be like, get out of here. And past. And now they're like, I'm in, and we launch it and it works, and it cool. This shit works.
And then we fought over the out facing slots.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
of course. Of course. Well, it's the tunnel, right? The tunnel's just taking it all to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like seeing, I'm not a tunnel rat, as you know. I did work at the tunnel, but I've never gone to crazy levels in the tunnel because I'm just not. Also, I worked in Orlando, which is not the best of tunnels.
Sure.
But what? Well, it's nice to see that I've seen people shred like nobody else in the tunnel. Like smoke me by miles, and then we put us together in the sky, and it's completely reversed.
Yeah.
They're good. They're okay in the sky, but they have so much to learn. So it's a situation where I can learn from them in the tunnel. They can learn from me in the sky.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm very happy to see that.
There's definitely crossover between the two sports, but they are definitely two different sports.
Yeah,
it's body flight, but they are two different sports. And I think the mental game with skydiving, you have to earn every bit of it. I mean, you have to earn your time in the sport and the jumps that you've got. Whereas the tunnel, you don't skip the fear factor, but it's certainly dramatically less than it is in skydiving.
Yeah. So when it comes to doing bigger stuff too, like you can't really emulate big formations in a tunnel. Now we have the tunnel where you can fit 40 people in, but 40 is not 80, 100, 200, like flying in a 10 plane formation, you know? And so the skill set and the body of experience that you develop being a skydiver, like he has for 20 plus years now, is going to help you to be able to function and you know, do the thing in those high pressure situations that even if somebody could fly that slot, if they don't have the canopy skills or the canopy awareness or the landing, or, you know.
Sure. Now, what about this little one? If is she going to be a jumper when she gets a little older?
What do you say, Cora?
No. You never want to jump out of the plane. Not even a test.
Tell them how many skydives you have, though.
Like 40.
You have 40 skydives.
In utero.
Fair enough.
She also has about 20 tandems in utero.
Well, would it be considered 3 ways? Because it was me, the tandem passenger, and her?
Every one of them would be a tandem because I'm on it.
That's true. That's true.
So I guess that would make her the secondary instructor on an in utero tandem.
Yeah.
So no interest in skydiving when you get older. You don't want to jump.
You don't want to jump, babe?
No.
Is it completely out of the question, or is it a possibility?
Possibility, but very low.
We live in a bizarro world. It's so backwards when parents are trying to talk their kids into doing silly shit.
At some point, I'll strap her into a harness and just take her.
She's told me before that skydiving is boring. And I think she's also a very different human than us. Like, she is more of a worrywart and an anxiety monster, and, like, you know, is fearful of the worst happening.
Sure.
Whereas we're aware that we've experienced it has happened, but we're aware of it and we do everything that we can to mitigate it. So, like, but she doesn't know about all the risk mitigation. She's
of
just
course.
like, that's dangerous, that's scary.
Yeah. My daughter's the same. My daughter doesn't really have any driving desire to be a skydiver. She's done a couple of tandems and they were fun for her, but she's on her own path and she's a working professional now and doing her own thing. So, which doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, if she had wanted to be a skydiver, it would have been okay, but I don't know that I would have wanted her to follow in my lifestyle, but the sport, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, and in this past year, we've been talking a lot about with Project 19 and inspiring others to live bold, brave lives. Like, I think that we can exemplify those things for them, and they'll take that into other aspects of their life, even if they don't follow in our footsteps with skydiving. If they see us, you know, meeting these challenges head on and doing these really terrifying things, and like doing them with composure and with presence of mind and with safety in mind and all of that, it can still, you know, inspire them in other areas.
Sure. And by the way, major props for all the Project 19 shit. You guys are fucking killing it.
It was awesome.
I mean, I was so badass.
It was literally one of the most inspiring, impactful experiences of my entire skydiving career. And I was very late to the game because I wasn't current for many, many years from my neck injury. And so I was only doing subterminal jumps. But he and Sharon did a couple of camps and did some big way camps. And I was like, can we do some more big way flying? Like, I literally texted Sharon, when can we do another big way camp? And this was like 3-4 months before Project 19. And I was like, she said, well, are you asking because you just want to do it and it's fun? Or are you asking because, like,
have you got a goal?
You want to do this? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, you should go to the Project 19 tryout camp. And it was the very last one. So
wow.
3 weeks later, I went to the last tryout camp and I got an invite to the bench, which I was really happy about. And
rock and roll.
You know, being so uncurrent, I was like, I don't have any expectations. If they use me, great. It's going to be an amazing experience. But it was like, it was incredible and profound and unforgettable.
And she was on a 97 way.
And I flew 8 seconds on a 97 way. I was the last diver out of the left trail plane and the last to dock on the formation. And I held on to it for 8 incredibly beautiful seconds. And I just, I'll never forget that.
Oh, of course you won't.
Camera, but it's like, it's on repeat in my mind very often.
Well, you know, the coolest thing about that and that project specifically was I was literally on the other side of the world watching it happen through posts here and there. And I'd still just get the vibe off of it and the tingle off of what was going on. And it was super inspiring. And believe me, I know it's not meant to inspire middle-aged white guys, but I was still super inspired. Right? Well, it's from the outside looking in, right? I'm like, this is so impressive. And it's so wonderful to see something like this happening in a sport that I've embraced for so many years, and just kind of two steps in front of the rest of the world doing really cool shit like that.
Yeah, I'm so proud of everyone. They just did such a great job with that event, and they're rewriting the way that these kinds of things are being done. And I just fucking love it.
Yep.
I'm so in for all of it.
Speaking of, what was the neck injury?
I had a canopy that was really old when I bought it from Peter G. It had probably, I don't know, 2,000 jumps on it. And that one tended to smack me. So I had some really hard openings, like 5 in a short amount of time, that caused me to have a herniation in my neck and several bulging discs in my neck. So I continued to jump and live in pain for a very long time, and continued doing videos and tandems. And then while we were in Israel, I finally got a CT scan that diagnosed what the issue was, but I still didn't have a solution on how to fix it. And then that's when we came back here and I found yoga. I was like, well, that's it.
So you didn't, no surgical intervention?
No surgical intervention. I used to have 2 or 3 times out of the year, I would have a flare up that I would be stuck in bed. Like Yonatan would literally have to lift me out of bed. I couldn't pick up my arm. Like radiating pain was so bad. It was debilitating. I couldn't pick up my baby. Yeah. And so I started practicing yoga here at the yoga shed with Emma, and then continued my practice, and it's progressed through the years, and I have almost no flare ups anymore. And I've avoided surgery completely.
Well, we're going to talk.
Stand on my head, stand on my shoulders, and
we're going to talk off podcast. Unfortunately for me, I am 2 surgeries in now. I've had 4 discs removed and replaced, and broke one of the discs and had it replaced and stuff. But I know that I still have enough range of motion that yoga is still an option. But if this is a lesson for any of the newer jumpers listening, do fucking yoga. Stretch, for Christ's sakes, because
and strengthen all those surrounding muscles too. I mean, like one whiplash could be all that you need to have some kind of injury occur. Oh yeah. But like it can be prevented. You can prevent having those things by, good canopy maintenance, getting your relines when they need, before it needs to be relined. There's all sorts of ways that you can avoid it. Yeah. Don't keep jumping a canopy that's whacking you. Send it to PD and say, this one's fucked, and they will concur.
I had one bad opening that I guarantee was the catalyst for most of the injuries. And Yonatan, it would have been working with you. You probably would have been on the load. I was shooting video for Mark Norman and blew up a parachute, nose to tail, top and bottom skin. But it wasn't even on the attachment point of the pilot chute. It was 2 cells over. How you do that, I don't know. But it hit me so hard I couldn't work for 2 weeks. And luckily we had a chiropractor with an MD wife that wrote me a prescription for a fuck ton of Vicodin. So I was just high for 2 weeks and not in pain. But
I mean, when we were working at it, I remember having had a camera helmet that had the plate where the still camera was upside down in front.
Yep.
And I had an opening that was so hard that this like 1/4-inch aluminum plate bent upward from how fast my head went down.
Yep.
And we were just tougher. We survived.
Whatever, man.
Tough or stupid?
Mostly stupid, I think.
If you're gonna be stupid, you better be tough.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were stupid and tough, and some of us just weren't tough enough.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I've got all the aches and pains, and I've talked to a lot of the guys that have been in the sport as long as I have. I had a really great conversation with Shannon Pilcher, who deals with a lot of injuries and pain. Jeff Provenzano deals with stuff like that, and all these rock stars, and all of us have the same opinion, which was, I did it to myself. So for as much as I want to be pissed that everything hurts when I wake up in the morning, at the end of the day, I kind of earned all of this. So it's a very bittersweet kind of pain every time you wake up, because A, it hurts, but B, I'm still waking up. So
yeah. Well, and Shannon and Shawan are good friends of ours too. And Shannon and I have talked a lot about pain management and stuff. And we're actually starting to do cold plunging in this past year.
Yep.
So that is another thing that I'll say. Like, we have a bathtub in our backyard, and we've been doing cold plunges a lot. And that's also really helpful. Nice. And I think the lesson to take from all of this is that, like, there are some pains that you have to go through, whether it's like stretching tight muscles or strengthening weak areas, that you shouldn't avoid because if you avoid them and you don't do these things that are going to help you in the long run, you're going to end up with a pain you can't avoid for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Something. So
well, and the cold plunges just give you, I mean, above and beyond everything else, it gives you a hell of a buzz for the rest of the day. I had Jason Maletsky came to stay with me while he was getting some tattoo work done, and I live just outside of Helsinki. And there's a place just down the street from me that actually chips the ice out of the Baltic. And
I saw that video.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I was
you guys do that?
I was just behind him. Well, that water was 2 degrees Celsius, and we were in it for 5 minutes.
I'm in.
Yes. You guys tell me when to pick you up.
We're gonna come visit you. Well, we're going to Italy this year to get tattoos. And so next year we'll come visit you.
Hell yes. Well, because we've been this last winter we went up to Lapland. We'll be going again this year, and probably a yearly thing to see the Northern Lights. And there's this beautiful lake and a cabin that we stay up in there, and cold plunge as well. But that's straight 0 degree Celsius water. Holy shit!
Can we make this plan right now? I know I'm inviting us on your trip to Lapland, but can we go cold plunge in the Northern Lights next year together?
Yes. Okay. Without a doubt.
Aside from the trip and all that, I would just be so happy to meet you again, see you again in person.
Right, dude. I was so stoked. I told Ella this. I had sent her a message. I'm like, your man has not fucking changed in all these years. And then when she confirmed that you guys would come on the podcast, I was literally bouncing around the house going, fucking Yonatan's coming on. Holy shit, this is great. Because it's been so many years, and Ella, we were such a tight crew in Cross Keys that after the 2 busy seasons we worked together, we all had similar accents. We all had a little Cross Keys weird accent because we just hung around our group and nobody else. Like outsiders would come in and kind of say hello, but I mean, you're Monday through Monday with the same crew, day after day, night after night. And it was just a spectacular time.
Yeah.
It really was.
I kind of wish I had found you all.
Do you remember when you, me, and Jacko moved into Squeaky Springs, as it was nicknamed?
Yes, I remember Squeaky Springs. I do at that. Although, let's be honest, there was only one room the squeaking was really coming out of, and it wasn't yours or mine.
No, definitely not mine.
Yeah, and it was more of a fucking jackhammer sound than it was a squeak, but yeah, those were absolutely fantastic times. And the cool thing about it, and my favorite thing about skydiving, is you're a member of a community for life, and those memories that you have with these people tie you to people all around the world forever. Yeah. You know, I mean, to some really honestly spectacular people. And I mean, it's so good to sit down and talk to you again after all these years. And by the way, before I forget about it, I know it's morning time for you guys, but because it's the 4th of July, I'd like to raise a toast.
Raise my coffee.
Yeah. Cheers to Sister Sarah and to all those that have gone before us, to amazing memories and fantastic people.
Yeah.
All right, as we wrap things up, first off, if you're doing coaching or jumping or anything like that, how do people find you? How do people come jump with you? Give me social media if you want to give it out. And then 2, I want you to give advice to people either just getting into or just getting burned out on the sport. Yonatan, you'll be able to give good advice on this. How do you either avoid burnout, or how do you deal with burnout in such a way that you can still come back?
For me, a lot of the burnout was just working at the sport too long. And you need to give it a break if you're getting burnt out, and just find the fun in the skydives. And for me to find the fun in the skydives was taking off the camera, not watching the video, and being in the moment of the skydive. Because when you're in the skydive and all you remember is the skydive itself, it's amazing. And then you watch the video and you start seeing all the little things that you did wrong, and you ruin it for yourself.
Sure.
Enjoy the skydive, and enjoy all skydives, meaning go do a belly jump. If you're a free flyer, go do a belly jump that you think is stupid, because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's the stupid skydives are so much fun. We did a speed star competition a few weeks ago, which was
amazing.
Amazing. Belly speed star.
Well, we were doing free fly too.
Okay, we started free flying, and then we're like, okay, we're losing, so let's switch it to belly.
and then we fucking rocked it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's so much fun.
Speed star. How point break of you.
How
I want to
OG.
get new people into sports, so we're doing Speed Start.
Yeah, nice. Ella, how do people come out and either do coach jump with you or anybody you know, or they're just thinking about getting into skydiving? I've got a group called the Beginner Skydiving Forum that tunes in a lot. So they're out in the Florida area. Where do they go? Who do they talk to?
Okay, well, actually, after almost 18 years in the sport, I just got my AFFI rating in the last year.
Yes.
So that's exciting. And I've already
Yes.
got a couple of students. So we could do AFF, we could do coaching. They can come to DeLand, contact either Yonatan or myself for free flight coaching or anything. We're also organizing some events, like he's doing vertical stuff. I'm also doing vertical stuff, but this year I'm organizing an all-female belly event. So
Nice.
FF Sequential in September. Right before nationals, where I'm also competing for the first time.
Nice.
I know. I'm doing 4-way. What the hell? It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, but about the burnout question and just tagging on to what Yano said, I think diversify. Like there's so many different aspects of this sport that you can do. So if you're getting fed up with something, whether it's the place, go somewhere else, find a different crew if that's not your people, or try a different aspect of the sport. But also remember that if you're, a badass free flyer and you're stepping into wingsuiting or base or whatever, like remember that you are a beginner, like let go of the ego, don't be complacent, go back to that beginner mind. Like hopefully people will always have that beginner mind of I'm always going to learn, I'm always going to be safety conscientious.
Super humbling. Going
Yes.
Yes, it is
into
humbling.
something new like wingsuiting. Holy crap. I was like, it's going to be easy. The only thing I could think of throughout the skydive was, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Yeah. But if you want to do wingsuiting, like we have Arcus Flight with Dan Darby and Ashley Richmond, and they're the best, and they're right here in DeLand too. So they're our coaches. He's our base mentor and everything. So
Awesome.
just try new stuff, meet new people, go to new places, take a break if you need it. Like when I wasn't skydiving, I was doing other things. I was surfing, I was freediving, paddleboarding, yoga, whatever. And like, it shouldn't be your everything either, because you never know when you or the universe might decide you can't jump anymore for physical reasons or some other reason. So like, it shouldn't be the thing that's keeping you together or that keeps you sane. It can be something that enhances our life and brings us connection of community and all that. But like diversify, not just within the sport, but outside of the sport. Connect with your jumpers in other ways. And that's going to maybe bring you back into the fold and make you want to jump again. So.
Sure. Actually, that's the same advice that Provenzano gave. He said most of the learning in the sport, in my opinion, happens off the drop zone with jumpers. Which I completely agree with. And yeah, the burnout thing, it's also nice to know if you're kind of burning out that your place in the community doesn't leave just because you're not going to the drop zone for a while. And I think people worry about that. They worry, nobody's going to remember me. I'm not going to be part of the community again. That's bullshit. You're always part of the community. And this is proof of that. I mean, 17 years and you and I could sit and talk like we hung out yesterday. So, it's crazy. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. This has been fantastic, guys. I cannot thank you enough. It took a little bobbing and weaving and dodging to get it done, but I'm so glad we finally got down and were able to talk. And we got to make sure it's not 17 years next time. It's just until next winter when you come to Lapland.
Yes, it is. It's next winter. We're going to set a date.
Proper cold plunging. Guys, thank you so much, man. Much love from the frozen north.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast brought to you as always by, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. Buy Pure Spectrum CBD. Head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available. Hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.